growing number of micro miners. And gets back to the energy harvesting thing I mentioned earlier. The ability to mine Bitcoin and heat a building at the same time, mine Bitcoin and grow shrimp, mine Bitcoin and heat hothouses. It doesn't need a lot of mining capacity to do that, right? You're paying for the energy anyway. Why not mine Bitcoin? About 95% of the heat or energy that you buy to plug a miner in is converted into heat when you mine Bitcoin. If you can capture that heat and use it for something else, think about it. People pay a lot of money to heat buildings. People pay a lot of money to heat greenhouses. There are industrial processes that need low-grade industrial heat for food processing, other things like that. So there are lots of opportunities for people to use small capacity Bitcoin miners to heat things. And so you're going to see a growing amount of hash rate. It'll be very slow at first, but over time you'll see it grow to be a significant share of mining that is micro miners doing simple things like heating, where mining Bitcoin is really a byproduct of what they're really doing. And that's something I'm super excited about, because there you can really talk about decentralization of Bitcoin mining.
Yeah, micro miners, I like that. There was that recent TV documentary, I don't know if you saw it, of the bathhouse in New York. I don't know if you saw that. Yeah, so that heat reuse, I mean, the possibilities there are endless, like you mentioned.
Sure. So, most miners are constantly chasing what we call utility scale mining. You get 100 megawatts of power locked up. You're either behind the meter or in front of the meter, and you're doing energy arbitrage. That is viewed somewhat parasitically, right? Because some people think you're taking power away from others. In reality, you're helping stabilize the grid if you work well with your grid operator. But it's still viewed kind of in a less positive light. Energy harvesting is really focused on trying to harness energy that otherwise is completely stranded. So think methane from oil fields, think methane from landfills, think methane from agricultural waste. So not just cow manure, but all of the agricultural products that are harvested and processed in some way for the food we eat or what we drink. So think of corn, think of sugar. Sugar cane is burnt normally after it's been processed, right? It causes huge amounts of pollution. You could take that sugar cane, put it in a biodigester, turn it into methane, use methane to generate electricity. The other thing we do, it's not just generating electricity from these products or these biomaterials. It's also then taking the heat we produce. Bitcoin mining is an ideal way of creating heat because about 95% of the energy that goes into a miner comes out as heat. And if you use immersion technology, you can capture that heat at about 50 degrees centigrade, which is very hot water. It's enough to heat a building. It's enough to launder clothes. It's enough to shower, etc. And so you can sell that heat back into an industrial process. So food processing, you could take the food waste coming out of a food processing plant, turn that into methane, turn it into energy, mine Bitcoin, and then pump hot water back into the process. That lowers their energy costs because now they don't have to pay to heat whatever it is they're heating. We're talking to people in Scandinavia where they use centralized high heat systems which spread steam around the city to heat it, about taking our dual phase immersion technology, which are think of them as micro miners almost, which you could deploy to heat a building. It's a self-contained box. You plug it in, you pay for power, and they pay you for heat, and it's about a wash on the cost. And what happens is you get Bitcoin for free that way. So we view a marketplace down the road where Bitcoin mining really becomes more like microgrids compared to utilities. Lots of miners in small sites spread all over the place, taking advantage of all this wasted, truly stranded energy, and then have the ability to potentially sell that energy into the grid when it's needed. So you're a net generator versus a net consumer. And I think that that's really the future where this goes, because that gets you to zero cost Bitcoin mining. And if you're a zero cost Bitcoin miner, you'll always be able to mine no matter what the price of Bitcoin is. And at the end of the day, one of the biggest debates happening amongst the maxis and the core developers is this concept of, do we want to alter the Bitcoin blockchain to provide for the security budget of the Bitcoin blockchain? Because eventually there'll be so many Bitcoin miners that it won't be profitable to mine. Well, that's the whole point. You have to get to a place where it doesn't cost you anything to mine Bitcoin. And at that point, Bitcoin will be the absolutely most secure network in the world because there's no way to attack it.
How far out are we from getting there?
So I think what you're going to see is over the next 4-year period between this halving and the next, at least from Marathon's perspective, this becomes a larger and larger part of our business. These projects take longer to execute, but what's exciting about this is it opens the opportunities to work with partners, right? For example, we can build and deploy a building heating system. We don't have to go sell it building to building. We can go to people who sell HVAC systems and say, hey, here's the system, right? You plug it in, you're going to get monthly recurring revenues for deploying this, and your customer's going to get heat. And so, we believe there's a channel play on all this, which is why we're very focused on our technology business, where we've developed these very unique dual phase immersion systems that can scale from a 1 cubic yard box that can heat a building or a greenhouse or a shrimp farm all the way up to, multi-megawatt size systems that can, heat major factories and factory processes. And so we're super excited about kind of the future there. And we're really morphing more from just a Bitcoin miner to a company that leverages energy to do things. And I think that's something that very much differentiates us. Plus, I think also our global footprint. You know, we're of the miners out there. We're one of the few people that mine not just in North America, but also in places like the Middle East, places like South America. And we're continuing to grow that because there are lots of opportunities both in the utility scale mining and the energy harvesting side part of the world all over. So
aspect of this power conversation is how much is coming from renewables. And I think that the renewable energy percentage just hit another all-time high. It's like 58, 59% now. There's no other industry in America for sure, probably nowhere, that has anywhere near, 2/3 of the energy consumption coming from renewables. Is that going to just continue to go up over time as you see the energy harvesting and a number of other kind of initiatives that people are going after?
Absolutely. There's a chart that I looked at the other day that somebody had put out, which showed the exponential growth of solar and wind energy over the past 100 years compared to coal and other sources. And, solar and wind have now surpassed coal as a source of energy generation. And, the big challenge with solar and wind is they're intermittent, right? In Texas, the big issue right now with the cold is if you have wind and you have rain, then you get ice on the windmills, and so the windmills don't operate. And if you have cloudy weather, you don't get as much sun. Geothermal is an area that we are very excited about. Why? Well, geothermal can be used in old oil sites. So you can leverage these wells that essentially think of them as dry wells and use them for geothermal energy production. That is a 24/7, 365 energy source that is totally clean. There is also geothermal energy available in places like Wyoming, where you have a lot of volcanic activity all around the world. And then there is great hydro resources available in the third world. Look at why we're in Paraguay. You have a dam that was built 40, 50 years ago. It produces 14 gigawatts of power, split equally between Brazil and Paraguay. Paraguay's total electrical use is less than 3 gigawatts, and this dam only supplies them a portion of that. So they have to sell the rest of the electricity at a loss back to Brazil. And so by bringing in Bitcoin miners now, all this hydro energy, which runs 24 hours a day, 365, can be used for Bitcoin mining. And the state of the utility in Paraguay now has an ability to generate a profit on the electricity it makes, so it can continue to invest in and build out the infrastructure in the country, as opposed to having to finance and subsidize this power generation. So we're seeing similar things like that in Kenya. We're seeing similar things like that in other places where we can leverage renewable energy sources and get ourselves as close to that 100% goal